Welcome. My name is Stephanie Benedetto, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that is committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people throughout the world. And as we're a very international group here today, I think that's showing that this is happening. So my guest today is the wonderful and amazing Derrick Mason. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He is a 3PGC board member, has been in the world of the three principles for 7 years. He is also the founder of Mindflow Academy and Derrick Mason Mentoring. And Derrick shared with me earlier that working with community organizations and doing community workshops is where his heart lies. So today he's going to be talking about bringing the principles to life. So without further ado, Derrick, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Steph. That intro was very nice. And yeah, welcome everybody. Nice to see so many faces and see so many see it come from so many different places all around the world. And who knew that I would be here talking to people from all over the world about bringing the principles to life. And when Steph, because I asked Steph, I knew it was a long intro that I wrote for this talk. And before I asked Steph to read it to me, and it was like, okay, who wrote that? But I definitely can't repeat what I said, but I definitely know the feeling that I was trying to talk about. And when Steph read it, it just filled me with that feeling again. And sorry, Steph, could I ask you to read it again, please? Because I'm talking and then the people are thinking, oh, I can't remember it either. If you could just read it, please.
Yes, I can. So this is bringing the principles to life. Somehow we can understand the true formless nature of the three principles, but can sometimes still see them as a thing that has to be done. So how do we bring the spiritual formless understanding of the three principles to our world of form?
Yeah, that was very nice, Steph. Thank you. Yeah, so when I wrote that, I guess I was seeing it as when I first got this understanding, it sort of evolved and changed for me. And the more deeper it's more got into the spiritual nature and a formless sort of nature that somehow shows up for me, but somehow I can miss it, or before I saw it, it didn't make sense, or that could never be a possibility. So I'm just going to take you through a bit of my journey on how I first come into contact with this understanding and how I saw it, and then how I saw it, how it wasn't really showing up in my life, but I understood it, but it was just showing up in my life, and how I saw it as a thing. And then I had to drop into a space where I could actually feel the actual true spiritual nature of this understanding. And without going too far ahead, let me just take it back to where I first got this understanding. Because a lot of you might know I was in prison when I got this understanding. And even when Steph said it, or when I told Steph earlier that I've been in this understanding 7 years, it doesn't even seem that long. It seems like I'm still a newbie that's just learning and grasping this new knowledge like a baby. And I think I always want to stay a baby. I don't want it to be 7 years and longer. I want it to be, yeah, I've just learned it, but it always feels like I'm just learning. Because, like I said, when I got this understanding, I was in prison and I was just looking for something to change my life, basically. Not outwardly looking for it, but when I saw what the principles or how my thinking had basically dominated my life and made me make decisions, and I'd make decisions from that space. And I saw that there was a way out. I saw that I didn't have to buy into that thinking that I had made up. And it improved my life immensely. Like I said, I was in prison. I started getting noticed for jobs that I never would have got noticed for. I started to show up with less anxiety in certain situations. And if I have it right, I swear that I had cracked life. I thought I had life on lock, and this is it. I was never going to be unhappy ever again in my life. How silly was I? But yeah, and it didn't take long for that one to shatter when I woke up and did my usual routine of looking at the door, thinking of my children on the beach, on holiday. That usual thinking never worked. And I got up and I was in a bad mood, and the day showed up for me just like that. And I was thinking, but how comes the principles is meant to take everything away? It's meant to make everything nice. It's meant to make. And I judged through that one for a little while. But again, that point there, that was another juncture where I could have thrown my toys out the pram and I could have said, oh, it's all rubbish. I thought this was meant to give me eternal happiness and peace. How comes it's not working now? And then I really had to look at myself and see that trust from the space it had moved me from to what I had seen. I had so much trust in that space. So I had to go into that space again and that trust. And then I saw from that, when I was in prison, I saw that the principles weren't a thing where it alleviated all my stresses and struggles. I still had to ride the roller coaster. And sometimes I would get in my head, or sometimes things would happen, and the usual routine or the usual thing to do or technique just wasn't working. And then that led me back into the old box of beating myself up and I wasn't right and what was I doing wrong. And then, like I said, I got the understanding that it weren't about doing anything right or wrong. It was about just riding the roller coaster. And when we're up, we can just appreciate it. And I found a new appreciation for being up, because I thought up was up and everything happens when you're up, and that's what I wanted to achieve. But it was more about the neutrality. And when we're down, we're down. Sometimes that's it. I'm just there and I can just appreciate that. But I can just as much appreciate that I can return back to that neutral space and maybe even turn a bit better higher up than that neutral space. But seeing that in prison, it sort of showed me, okay, it's about riding the roller coaster and riding the waves. Then I was released from prison. And let's just say all the temptations and all the desires that weren't available to me in prison were now in my orbit and in my circumference. And again, I understood about the roller coaster nature of life and how I could just ride it and how I could just survive and use my resilience. But again, when we're looking at my situation, which was actually real for me, which was I've been released, I've been a criminal all my life, I had no qualifications, I had no thing to say I could do this and do that. And my intellectual mind would have told me I would have to worry and stress. But again, I had that trust and faith that don't do nothing, but just be aware of the opportunities that present themselves. And I went to probation one day. My regular probation officer just wasn't there. But there was another probation, a standing probation officer. And she said, oh, I've just seen a leaflet upstairs on my desk for a job. I don't know if you'd be interested in it. And she came down, gave me the leaflet. I phoned them. And that's where I got my first job when I came out of prison. And again, it furnished me in that trust of even not trusting in myself. If I trust in myself, then I can trust in the process. And the process that, again, that's outside of me. How can she be bringing down a form for me? And then that leads me to find work. Suppose she didn't come in that day. What would I have? What? And then I got caught in the what ifs and the what thingies and the wherefores. And I said, no, if you really understand this, how it's really meant to be understood, then you are all one. Everything is in motion. Everything is playing out as it's meant to be. So even when I look back and I see everything that I went through, what made me able to share when I come out of prison and share in front of audience what didn't look like me, telling a story what I didn't think anybody had the time or inclination to listen to. But I'm sharing that story from that space of love and understanding on my part, and it's impacting people. And it's like, wow, what's going on there? Again, it's having that trust. That it's a connection thing, my story, and hearing stories from other people that don't look like me. I haven't got the same background as me, but I can feel me in there. And it gave me an understanding of how when I came out and I found work painting and decorating, then I started to work with community organisation, Beyond Recovery, the same one that came into prison to impact me. Started to work with them, and I had this idea of what I should do and where I would be, and I saw how I could get caught in that narrow trap of getting caught into my story and not making the full nature of the principle show up for me. Because again, I sort of locked it down and saw it as saw it as a thing and not something that just happens and appears that I just tune into. And again, like I said, all the time you can see it, but then when you see something else that doesn't look the same, it hasn't got the same spiritual nature, hasn't got the same essence, you can think and feel it's something different. And this understanding has definitely showed me that at the stages I've seen all this uncover for me, like when they started talking about this is a true spiritual understanding, I would have got frightened. Because anything to do with spiritual nature, I'm thinking religion, I'm thinking techniques. But because of what I felt in myself and that contact with my true spiritual nature, which had nothing to do with any rules or regulations or anybody outside of myself that wanted to do that as well. But if you're open and you're in the same space as me, there's a spiritual connection what takes place. And when I feel that, I know I can not just reserve it for meetings like this where I talk about this understanding. And that's the bit that really got me. That's the bit that got me to focus on this talk. To say I can be in these meetings and I can talk from this space, and the feeling that's coursing through my chest now is the most beautiful feeling. But how does that translate into life? How do I bring that out of this room and make it show up for me? And I tell you, if I try that, then it doesn't work. It doesn't happen. When you trust in yourself and trust in this feeling, then all the reasons why I can't show up like this outside of this meeting just fall away. And somehow I can find myself in the most, not even dire situations, but not good situations. Situations that previously would have left me feel intellectually uncomfortable. I can see them now and I can still feel a little bit, but I know my spiritual nature will bring me through. Because that's always there for me. It's always been there for me. And from I can experience my thoughts and I can see myself in a pure love way, as the purest form I can see. Because I see that pure form that we talk about comes from a place of such purity. As soon as we think about it, we put our something personal on that as well. There's a piece of us on that. But before that space, just before that space, the most beautiful space I've ever inhabited, and I can bring that into my life. And it's not a guarantee that this principles mean that it's going to show up for me all the time like that. But I know that it's in the background. I know that it's always in the background. And when I'm open to it serving me, it will serve me. And this is what brings me again to say that, like I said, I had no skills other than sharing my story and getting short of getting caught in my story. Outside of that, I wouldn't have had anything else to talk about. But again, I had trust and faith that I was more than my story. And the feeling that I followed when I had my first insight that I was good enough will always follow me through no matter what I'm doing. Like Steph said, I've started 2 businesses. I've started a community organisation and a mentoring thing I'm doing. And all of those things, if you would have told me 7 years ago that that's what I'll be doing, I would have laughed. I would have told you I have to go study for that. I would have to have certain qualifications. But if you would have told me, no, I've been to the future and I've seen you and you're doing that, I would have come out and I would have planned that this is what I have to be. And I would not be here right now because I would have put form on it. I would have told myself what it is I need to do to get to this stage. And when it didn't look like it was happening, I would have given up. Because nobody could have told me the journey it took for me to get here would look like what it looked like. But now I look back, I can see the trust that was involved, the trust in myself, the trust in what's in me and what's outside of me. Because what's outside of me will show up for me as when I need it. And the trust I have in myself is to recognize that. And again, if I don't recognize it every time, then that's okay. Because we have this thing where we say wisdom never lets us down. Wisdom's there for us every moment, just gently whispering at us from that space beyond that thing where I know that the wisdom and that truth we talk about. To me, that thing I said before, like it has no language. It has no language, and we have to feel it, and then we have to articulate and put our own language on it. But that feeling, what I feel, when other people have articulated how that feeling shows up for them, somehow I recognize that feeling, and somehow it stirs that feeling in me. And that is what I'm talking about, the true spiritual nature, when it's formless, but in form. In my chest, in every fiber of my being. 1 second. Sorry about that. It was my birthday yesterday, and someone's just come and knocked my door and left me a little birthday treat by the door. I'll check that out after. But yeah, because I'm talking about this spiritual nature, how things just come to us when they're meant to come to us. But yeah, no, I just love the way that how this understanding has helped me so many ways in knowing that it doesn't mean I'm going to live a life of pure happiness. Doesn't mean I'm going to live a life of serenity. It just means I can recognize it in more places than I did previously. And I can experience that serenity in more places than I did previously. And when I'm in that and I recognize it, then that is bringing this understanding into my life. Unashamedly. I remember when I first got this understanding and we would talk about love in the little prison room, and I didn't want to come outside and tell anybody what we was talking about, how we were talking about love and we're talking about connection and all these hardened prison, they'll be like, what are you talking about that stuff for? Well, because I was frightened. I didn't have the trust in this feeling that's in me, that birthed me, that I live within, that sustains me. And from I didn't have any trust in that, that just shows how lost and how off my compass was. But just to glimpse it, just for a moment, was enough to furnish me. And then you got like nuclear fuel. You got like one little drop of nuclear fuel can power a city for hundreds of years. When I glimpsed that true nature of myself, that's what it done. But it didn't power me every second of every day. Whenever I'm prepared to look into it and see it, I can still see that glowing light coming from me, emanating from me. And that's how I see this understanding to be practical from within my heart and within my soul. And it's like you take care of that part, and what happens, what plays out in front of you sort of takes care of itself. And it doesn't have to look the way we think it looks. If I would have planned this journey to be here where I am right now, because I couldn't be in a better place right now, and I could choose how I got here, it would involve a lot of yachts, it would involve a lot of private jets, it would involve a lot of holidays, it would involve a lot of that stuff, but it wasn't that way. It wasn't that way. And only I thought it was meant to be that way. But it was the way it was meant to be. And I accept that now so much, in knowing it's not just a past thing. Well, yeah, because I've been through it, that's the way it had to be. But not now, not now. Give me happiness now. No, sometimes it's part and part of the journey. And that's something that I'm getting more and more of an understanding of. It's definitely not about the destination. It's always about the journey. It's always about the journey. I think I was going to talk for about 20 minutes. I think I've just gone over that a little bit, but I was going to, because like I was saying to Steph before, these are new, and I haven't watched any previous ones, and I've just gone for what I felt was right in the moment. And so I've just spoke for about 20 minutes. I'm going to open it up for questions, or we can have a little debate or have a little talk about anything I've said or anybody seen anything. Or if nobody's got anything, then we just have a little moment of silence and then I'll talk again. It's up to you guys. So where do you guys want to take it? Has anyone got a question they can ask or put their hand up or just ask a question in the chat? Marcella.
Hi there. Hi
Hi.
there. It's so nice to see you and all the other people, Steph and Nancy and others, Peter. And I just want to express my gratefulness for hearing and listening to you. And I always love you reassuring us that it's about where we are meant to be. You know, it's maybe not how we would have wished it, but it's just exactly the way it is meant to be. I just love that. And I love the feeling you just express all the time. So thank you for that. We don't even need the words. It's just to be with you in that beautiful space and in that trusting. Thank you.
No, thank you, Marcella. You know, it's like I allow myself that freedom to just show up, and it's just being in a company like this, and every time it just reminds me of how much I do have that trust in myself to just show up and be in that feeling. And it's just the most amazing thing. And every time it just blows me away with the depth or the serenity that I can feel. I'm just speaking about my journey, and even what I've said before, a lot of the stuff I've said before, I could be sitting there stewing and thinking, why did it go like that? But I could share any story from that grounded space. And that would just tune me in. And I remember saying one time, I was in a little, not distress, but I wasn't working and I needed to find a job. And it was like, why are the principals not showing up for me? Where were the principals now? And then I get an email 2 minutes later saying, oh yeah, that job that we was talking about a few months ago, yeah, it's ready for you now. And it was like, oh yeah, the principals are there. They've always been there. I just didn't see it because it's a flow. It's a flow, and it's a beautiful flow. And yeah, just being a part of this understanding has fundamentally changed my life. And just knowing that I can produce these feelings from in me is just the most amazing thing. And yeah, if it wasn't spiritual, then my intellect will be able to wrap itself all around it, and I wouldn't be able to talk about none of this stuff. But this is so vast and expansive that my intellect struggles to just comprehend a piece of it. So where it does get a hold of a bit of it, it tries to get a good grip on it. But again, that's just part and parcel of life. As long as I know that the main part of me is that expanse that I'm talking about, that is past my intellect. Well, thank you for that, Marcel. See, even just interacting with you guys just sends me in another place again, man. This is beautiful. But,
If I can just add something more, just thank you for that beautiful touch of that space of trust. Thank you so much. And happy birthday to you, Derrick.
Oh, thank you, Marcella. Thank you. Oh, God. Stuart, my buddy. Oh, he's in the real New York, isn't
he? Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Good to see you, Derrick.
Likewise, man.
Good to see you. And it's so funny that I'm working in very similar spaces as you. And I haven't talked to you in a while, but I'm doing it by myself.
Okay.
And I never thought that I could continue doing it by myself. And working in spaces and with people that I've always wanted to do this work, but never had any concept that I could, because I'm coming from the business world, and now I'm coming to this, and I realized that business is people. People are business, and I go to a group every other Sunday at a prison in upstate New York, and I've been working lately with a pastor, and he says, "Oh, come to my come to the service on Sunday." And I say to him, "No, I'm sorry, I can't go this Sunday because I'm going to my church." And when I say it, I really mean it, because not only do I give something to them, but they give something to me. And that's that's the thing that blows my mind. It blows my mind. I can't even, like you said before, there are some things you just can't grasp it intellectually. You could only grasp it from that space inside, that spiritual place that says, why not? Why not? And I'm going to share something with you in particular about that. So I go there and I'm a volunteer. And one of the guys asked me, and this is something new to me, obviously, and I'm doing it by myself. So one of the guys asked me to write him a letter of support, right? And I said yes, I would do it. And then I thought about it. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have, but I did it anyway. Okay. And so generally what happens in that space, people talk. And he talked about it, and he was actually very happy about it. But he talked about it, and he didn't have the intention of what happened, because now I got approached by a couple other guys to do the same thing. And it took a lot of of introspection and courage to eventually address this with them. And I did it this past weekend. And I said, I'm here as a volunteer. It was never my intention to be here to write letters of support or do anything tangible. I wanted to just bring this understanding. And I spoke to them about it. And all the thoughts of fear, how are they going to react, and this and that. I just knew that I had to. I had to. That's what was coming from inside me. And they understood. They totally understood. And then before the session was over, the guy that I had really originally wrote the letter, in front of everybody, apologized for putting me in that position. And I was like, wow. And I want to cry just talking about it. Because yeah, you can't put a price on something like that. You can't quantify something like that. The feeling that that gives you, it just propels you somewhere that you never thought you could go. And when you do trust in it, that's the power that it has. And I thank my twin brother every day for bringing this to me 25 years ago, 26 years ago, actually. And then to actually work with him and really get, because it was just a cursory understanding. Well, it wasn't the way it is now, the way that I feel it now. It's totally like beyond my first concept. And it's constantly, like you said, changing. It's the journey. It's being in the unknown and trusting that something is going to take care of me. And it does every single time without fail. And again, that's the thing that amazes me. And I don't know exactly which way I'm going to go or how it's going to happen, but I just trust that it's going to. It's something that Sid knew. Sid felt that. Okay. That's what he was trying to tell us. Just trust in that. That's the spiritual nature of this. Right. And that's the part that psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, all these people that are trying to help us, they're missing it. And now the people that do understand it, they understand it. And that's, I want to just keep doing this. I'll do this till I can no longer have breath in my body. I know that. And so being able to come on here and talk with you, I saw your face on the thing and I was like, I have to go. It's no doubt. I don't care if I have a million things to do. I'm going to make the time to come here and share with you guys, because I'm going to share a story that you told me and my brother. I hope it's okay. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So Derrick was telling me about a time that he was I don't know where you were, I guess another prison or whatever, and you're doing a class. And sometimes you wonder whether people are getting it or not, or if they're listening or paying attention. And it goes through your mind, and then hopefully you just move on. So that's kind of what happened with you. You saw this guy in the back of the room doing push-ups every time you were doing the class, right? He's doing push-ups. And then like, I don't know, I guess years later, this person,
About a year and a half, 2 years later,
he called you and he said all these things that are happening to him and what's happening. And then you realize he was listening the way that he had to listen. It wasn't exactly the way you would picture it, but he listened to it the way that he needed to. And again, that's the amazing thing. That's the amazing thing. And I hope and I tell the guys this, when you say things to me, I hope you copyright it because I'm going to use it.
I love that, Stuart. And those things I can't take ownership. They pass through me. They just come through me, and it's a gift, or it's just what it is to the world. And to hear that story again, or to just be reminded of that, is exactly what we're talking about. How somebody can be doing press ups through all the groups and be seen as a distraction. But when he leaves prison and then he starts doing something, he starts to study criminology, and then he gets in contact to say that, yeah, the things that he heard in that group is what's inspired him to live in the moment. But that was exactly right for him. And I think that again speaks into what I was going to say to you, Stuart, is when you mentioned it, that exchange. It's all about that exchange. And sometimes we have to do things in order to pay off to get that exchange. And we done a little note and thought it was the right thing to do in the moment. And then we saw okay, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was coming a bit from the intellect, and we felt that we just had to be open. And again, we could shut off and say, no, that's going to cause a problem. Do you know what? I'm going to start volunteering the one up the road because I don't want to bump into them guys anymore, or just take us somewhere different. But you followed that trust. And then that trust allowed you to have that exchange, not just with the people who you were telling, you know what, I'm not going to be able to write any more things. But then you had an exchange with them where they understood. Then the guy you wrote the thing for understood, and he was part of that exchange. And he said, oh, do you know what? I can see what's going on. And this is what I apologize, or whatever he said. And it's just sometimes for that feeling there, yeah, I would go through a little uncomfortable experience just to witness that and just to see, because that's people in touch with their well-being on all different levels, on all different, but it's through that spiritual need, that connection, yeah, of this trust in them, trust in you, trust in everything around us to be exactly how it's meant to be. And it's so beautiful. And even what you're saying as well, because I know Stuart and his brother Mark, but to know you're showing up here by yourself and you're saying you're doing this work by yourself, that is just, and it's past that image of what you thought you would be doing and is what direction you thought you would be going. Again, it just shatters it in every moment. But we're humans, when we shatter one, we want to build another one straight away. And sometimes it's there, but we don't notice it. But yeah, our formless nature just bursts through that when we're willing to look into it. Because all that what we build is all form. When we sink back into that spiritual for that exchange from that place, where we can only feel that exchange from that place, there we grow and we flourish in places where we never thought possible. Oh, thank you, Stuart. Thank you for reminding me as well, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we got to talk soon as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it Casey first or then Peter? Or is it Casey?
Yeah. As like I said, I don't know, but I did show up at the very end of your talk, so I hope that it's still fair what I have to say. I know, I'm so sorry.
Joking.
But in another way, I feel like I showed up right on time, right? Because as I came in, you were saying it's all about the journey, not the destination. And I know every one of us have probably heard that phrase, like a million times. And I realized as you said that, how that has actually just started to show up in my life as truth, right? Every once in a while, I still get myself caught up in the idea of like an outcome. And then I realize like, well, I don't actually know how this is going to play out. So it doesn't even matter. Why don't you know? And then I'm right back in this. And it's such a beautiful space. And I think for the longest time, I did focus on like the whole, it's not your thoughts you can't believe, blah, 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 right? And the whole thoughts about it. But when I really finally opened up to the possibility that, when I opened up to the possibility of who I actually am, that's when the journey became amazing, right? Whatever showed up. And I became less afraid to talk about that to my patients and clients. And I'm shocked time and time again when I do, they're all just like, well, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, goodness gracious. Why was I so afraid of this? It's so wild. It's like something that Stuart kind of alluded to. It's like, it's the thing that's missing. And I think everybody almost knows that it's missing, but nobody's actually saying it. Not nobody, right? But like a majority of the people that they're talking to, nobody's saying it. And once you finally say it or just put it out there, call out the elephant in the room, so to speak, the beautiful, gorgeous, amazing elephant in the room. Everyone's, oh, like, you're right. How did I not see that? I don't know. So thank you for ending your talk with that phrasing. I'm glad that I got in for that, and I will go back to listen to the rest of it. But yeah, thank you.
No, thank you for that, Casey. And I think you just reminded me again that the little rules that we sort of inhabit and think that we have to stick to. And 'cause in my time when I've run those community workshops, I've seen people show up late and you can see the flustered look on their face and you can see like, and it's just such a loving feeling, and you can reassure them 100 times that it's okay, but they're still thinking like, oh no. But when they really understand that, oh, this is different. Maybe I don't have to be so flustered. Maybe it's okay that I was late. Maybe I did get here and hear just what I needed to hear. And it's like what you said, Casey, when you start with that trust in yourself, you start to have that trust in yourself, then you can see how everything shows up in its place at its time. And you're never really late for anything. Yeah, you always just get there at the right time. Yeah, it's such a profound thing for me to know how that actually shows up. And I'll even tell you a little story. I was working for an organization not too long ago, and they terminated my services through email. There was a little story behind it, but they terminated my service through email, and it was at the time I was just had in the background. I was watching Linda and I think it was Kat that was talking at a 3PGC talk, and Linda was talking, Linda Pransky with somebody else. And when I read the email and I could feel like my well-being rushing away from my body. I could feel the intellect kicking in and buying into the story. And then in the background, I just heard Linda saying, yeah, because sometimes we hear bad news and we can hear bad things, but we just ride it out and we just let it seep through. And she started to coach me through what was happening. And I said, wow, look at, and the feelings just left me. And I said, okay, that was the intellect. But how weird and strange that would be what she picked to talk about at that precise moment. And it blew me away. And I said, no, she's actually just talking to me. She's saying, Derrick, this is how you deal with that email. You let it just soak away. You know that the other person was in their head and she done the whole number on it. And I was like, oh, I needed that. Did I need that? Because I was about to fire off a return that was going to come from an elevated, grounded space, if you know what I'm talking about.
I'm very familiar with that place.
But I saw, wow, I got that email. I was in the right place at the right time, and I wasn't even listening to the talk that much. I was distracted in my computer. That's how I bumped into the email that would have terminated my services. But I heard what I needed to hear at the right time. And again, it just blew me to say, wow, this is all connected. It's all just strange. And people could say, oh, that's an oddity. That just happened. Oh, that happened to me last week. And play it off or play it down. No, I choose to go with the feeling in my gut, because the feeling that left me with is the same feeling I'm feeling right now. And it's that trust. It just furnishes and reinforces that trust. And just knowing that what I listen to is just right for me in that moment. Whether my intellect tells me I'm late or not, I get caught in that chatter. I'm not listening to what's really meant to be there for me. And when we open up to that space, it's just beautiful. But I love the way, Casey, we open up to that space by having trust in ourselves. Oh, thank you guys, man.
Thank you. Thanks for that story.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Derrick, and thank you very much for everything you've said so far, and also the other people who've come in. But from what you said, two things in particular that are really bouncing around in me are trust and riding the wave. And when Marcella was talking, she happened to mention about not needing words. And so the reason I put my hand up was there's been a lot going on in my world, my life over the last while. And some of it has felt pretty challenging. And one of the impacts, one of the things that's been going on has been physically, I haven't been in great shape. So I went for a physical therapy session yesterday morning. It's a Japanese holistic therapy called a Matsu, but anyway, it's a whole body treatment. And the woman that I was going to see, I kind of went in there expecting her to, as we'd say here in Ireland, give me a good talking to. So she'd be scolding me for not doing my exercises and not doing my stretches. And so when she asked me, how are you? I told you I'm not in great shape. And I told her. So she did a mini assessment of me first, and then she put me lying down on the treatment table and she started working on me, and she put on this nice gentle music. And I didn't feel like talking. But as I lay there, my eyes started welling up. And so I'm lying there and literally tears start rolling down the sides of my head. And she goes to say something which prompts her to look at me, and then she realizes what's going on. And she goes quiet. And so she continues working physically, and I'm just letting these tears roll. And over the course of the treatment, which lasted for about an hour, this happened 3 or 4 times. And for me, if I use your phrase, I was riding the wave. And when the treatment was finished, I went to get up off the plinth, but I couldn't get up. And I just cried again. So she then stood in front of me and she said, stand up. And I did. And she just held me in a hug. And now I cried. I just kind of flowed completely. I'm sharing that because what I took from it was that was a bigger intelligence that I was tuned into here, just in play. And I didn't walk very steadily out of that place. And yet, even though I felt a bit shaky, I felt better. And I came home and she said, I'm going to let a good friend of yours know that this session has happened because I know he's a good support to you. And he's the one guy who knew what was going on for me. So he rang me about 2 hours later. And I just felt easier. And I've carried that into today. And it's the riding the wave, the trusting. You talked about being open, Derrick. And as Marcella said, this is beyond words. I could talk about the details of what's going on, but I would just pull myself more into it. This was more a case of opening and surrendering. And thankfully, I'm the better of it today. So I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you, Peter, for that share. That was beautiful. And I know sometimes people hear me say stories are beautiful, and it's like, what are you talking? But no, what I heard in that story was a lot of beauty, and like just expressed it, just like riding the wave. And I think the important thing is how you felt when you came out, and we don't have to go back in and analyze even why you done that or why that feeling came or what was going on or what happened before or after. Know how you felt afterwards. And just know that it's the same wave you're riding now, and that sometimes things need to be done, things need to happen. We need to let things go, and we don't have to know or analyze, like I said, what it is. We just know I've lost it. It feels lighter. On to the next moment.
Yeah.
And with that same lightness that I experienced before, and I can guarantee that for that moment, everything in your life around you never changed. Whatever was going on was still going on, but you could manage to feel so light and feel so.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is with everything. That is when we go beyond what is going on in our physical. And when we come back there and arrive at that bit of freedom, we see whatever we need to see. Sometimes it's not what we need to see. It looks like we don't want to see that. Sometimes it's painful. And that's what I thought. This understanding is meant to have freed me from that. But even recently, right now, I'm in a little situation where I'm got a lot of form and thinking on what something needs to look like and what I have to look like before I'm ready to, and it's like all made up. It's all made up. Sometimes it's frightening. Sometimes it's scary. But I know that it will just work out. And that could be doing something totally different than what I'm planning on doing. Work out just means it will work out for me. And I can find that space, what you're talking about, that bit of freedom anywhere. And when I don't put it into one space or one area, I'm freeing myself to see it anyway. Even when I'm standing up and sobbing or crying, I just know that there's something going on in me that's deeper than my physical, but it's just showing up in my physical.
Well, one of the things you referred to, Derrick, was the feeling. And that's what I found through that experience yesterday. And it reminds me of, I did a coaching session with Christine Heath back in January. And 2 people who are on this call witnessed that. But I said that there were 2 things I was interested in exploring. But I got such a shift in feeling on the first one that when Christine then asked me, would you like to move on to the second one? I said, no, I've just got such a good feeling. I want to stay with it. And that was a revelation to me. And I actually shared that with Christine earlier, was it last week, that I'm an engineer by background. I normally work through lists. And now I got to experience that if the feeling shift is big enough, it's like it just moves you into a different zone completely. I didn't get that before. So you helped remind me of that this evening. Thank you.
Wow. No, thank you, Pete. I was at that call. I was watching that call. I remember that. That was an amazing call as well. But yeah, but just to hear you say that again, and you're an engineer, so your like intellect stages process.
Yeah.
But no, we can come before that, and then that just takes care of itself in a much better way than we could have ever intellectually planned. But oh, thank you.
And by the way, given that you witnessed that call, what was going on for me yesterday was connected with the journey I've been on since then. So
Yeah, yeah.
so thank you for today.
No, thank you, Peter, for sharing and putting that even into context, because like I said, we just always are wherever we need to be. And yeah, that when we know that, that gives us a little bit of space, so just from that. And then it gives us a space and the freedom and the trust to show up however we need to show up in that moment. So no, thank you for sharing that, Peter. Thank you so much. Kristen, sorry, Kristen, I'm sure it says Kristen.
Yeah, it's Christian.
Christian,
Hi.
right. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm doing. I'm really enjoying the call, and really could. My mind is kind of restless at the moment, so I'm not managing to stay with everything, but I can still really get in touch with the feeling, and I guess that's the important thing here. And I'm kind of new to this 3 principles. I've been studying it for a year's time or something. And just sort of gradually going in, I'm understanding it a little bit here and there, and but it still feels like even though I realize it's all thought, it still feels like I'm a prisoner of my own thinking sometimes. Like, and I've been struggling with depression. I've been doing I'm a coach in another modality that is kind of similar. It's a spiritual self-help modality called releasing. And I started to realize that grief is sort of my go-to place. It's a pattern I have going into grief. And I still feel like a victim of that. It's like, and I'm starting to get these really heavy thoughts about we're all going to die, everything's going to end, and da 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 da, all that stuff. So, and also apathy, like feeling, oh, I can't get up and do what I really want to do with my life. I can't do all these things. And I feel low on energy. And it's still like, I realize it's only thought, but it still feels like I don't manage to do anything with it. So I wonder if you have any comment on that.
Yeah, so sometimes with this understanding, even to grasp it a little bit when I first had this when I first caught onto this understanding, I think I alluded it to earlier, where I thought everything was going to be perfect and everything was going to be right, and it was all thought, so it can all just. But there's some thoughts that we buy into and we hold on to, and we still sort of have a belief that it means that we're bad, or it means we're doing a bad thing, or it means I know this now, so I'm meant to stop doing that, or it's not meant to show up like that anymore. But that again is more fault on top of fault, because if we just accept that it's okay to be that way, but then we also believe that inherently I wasn't built this way, but it's okay to show up this way, then when we have the awareness in the moment, it's sort of like it just gets boring and we just see the validity in not doing it anymore. Because if we are following that feeling, then we get a choice, or we get an option. Go through the regular door, or do I pick a different door that might produce a different feeling? And we only have to do that once. When we do that once, we sort of open our options. Because we know they're all thought, but then again, I would say there's no such thing as good and bad thought. There's just thoughts that we label as not good for us. And there's thoughts that we label as, though, those are good for us. And in the world of ideal, we're picking all the thoughts that are good for us. How about all thoughts are just thoughts?
So in a way,
sorry,
it's a matter of what thoughts you believe in. Is that you say, or okay?
That is exactly it. And what thoughts you believe in can be broken down. If everything is thought, then we can just unbuy out of all our thinking and just show up. If we didn't buy into any of our thinking of who we were and what we have to do and what people expected of us, I could walk down the street with not one worry on my head except for being. and things take care of themselves, like breathing, blinking, all of that takes care of itself. I'm just free to just be me and let the thoughts run through me, because the thoughts don't say anything about who I am.
So life takes care of itself in a way, you could say.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And well, to be honest, and this is a bit difficult to share, but I sort of have some of the same background as you with, or I used to be into drugs, and I don't know, I sort of got the impression there was some, and prison and these kind of things. And it all got on, it's just this stone started rolling. And now I'm facing, I'm going to court next Monday. And I'll probably, unless I'm very lucky, I'll probably get a few years in prison. So like 2 years and 4 months in prison for cannabis criminality in Norway. And that's sort of getting into me, because I know it's hard to be in prison. That's my experience. And there's no 3 principles teachers here in. Maybe I could be one. I might, but I might have to go in January or something like that. So I'm trying to prepare, and maybe I'll try to download all kinds of Sydney Banks materials and get, so I could just watch that over and over and over and over again there. But that's also on my mind. This thing is like a shadow hanging over me to be there. Yes, that's sort of affected me a lot.
I know that's a lot of thinking. That's a heavy lot of thinking, and you can't really run away from the reality of the situation. But even with your ambition of what you're saying, maybe you could be a coach. Maybe what you're about to go through is going to furnish you to become a coach, or maybe it's going to furnish you to be something else, or maybe it's going to. Who knows? Who knows? We know that you're not going to have the freedom.
I'm already a coach in another modality. So I just started my own company. It's something called Releasing. It's about letting go of. It's very compatible from another enlightened master. Very compatible with Sydney Banks stuff. But and I'm wondering if I should share this, because I'm starting to build up a little community of people that love to come to my calls and this. And I'm thinking, should I share this with, because they have to know why I'm away. If I have to go away for, maybe because I'll stay 1 year, 2 months in high security prison, and then there'll be no internet, no internet access. After 1 year, 2 months, I might be starting to give calls again. But if I should be honest with my customers or people coming to me that this is why I'm away or not, so this. And this is the first time I've spoken about it publicly,
Well done. Well done. The answers for everything that you're talking about, we don't know what's going to happen, but the answers that you're looking for will come to you. And if you're in that quiet space, you will pick the right one, or you will see it for what it is. But we're a little over our times. I'm just going to ask Bruce to share quickly, because I can't have someone with their hand up and not address them. So, no, it's not your issue. Thank you for the question, Christian. Bruce, have you got a comment or a question quickly? Sorry for overrun everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Can carry on another day, but Derrick, I so appreciated listening to you on the UK series, and I'm going to re-listen to all of those. But Christian, my wife and I just got back from Norway 5 days ago, and my grandparents immigrated from there. And yesterday, I received a call from a man seeking help with recovery. And I had also had a 3-hour conversation when we were in Oslo with our ship with a resident of Norway. And a lot of the things you share echo what we talked about. But the fellow that reached out to me today, I will certainly share with him the 3 principles. And I think in the recovery community, for me, it's been 6 decades in family and 5 decades personally, that you get a lot of clarity because you listen better and you see better. And my best to you. I think your plan to download all that and just chew on it while you're there, and then reach out to Derrick and those of us that embrace recovery when you're out. But just don't let the flame go out. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for speaking to that, Bruce. And yeah, like you can reach out anytime, Christian. And like someone just put in the chat, it was so brave of you to share that. And yeah, it's just coming from that moment in the feeling that's coming from you. And no matter what happens in the next 3 months, that feeling's always going to be in you. And it's going to guide you to where you need to be in the moment to create more of that feeling. So, oh man, I just want to thank you all for showing up. Thank you, ones who participated, and just for showing up, your participation has been felt. So I want to thank you all. Sorry for overrunning, but it was a beautiful call. And yeah, I love you guys all so much. Thank you, Steph.
Thanks, Derrick.
Thank you,
for
everyone.
Thank
coming.
you.
Thanks,
Steph.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Stephanie.
you. Wonderful
Vanessa.
call. Wonderful
Leave
call.
it to
Thanks,
you
Steph.
all. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Derrick. Thanks, Steph.